viewers, and welcome to the last episode of Anzenmezzeron Hell Games, where I will showcase actual plays of Magna Gothica Maleghast. In this episode, Zytlos vs Archive vs Algrazdax vs Feyfoken, with Bullfroggy as Zytlos, Umbral Reaver as Archive, Align as Algrazdax, and Pool Noodle as Feyfoken. That's right, in today's episode, all hell breaks loose. We are going for a 4 players free-for-all with a complete homebrew faction set, because as the last episode of the series, we are going for maximum chaos. This is no longer an educational series, this is an evil series now. So, to give a brief summary on each of the homebrew faction, Zytlos is a carcass-like shooty house that does better the more it gets better with metals, also prefer magic damage more, like fire. Archive is, as I have mentioned in last episode, Borg with a hot potato mechanic that gives a unit more power when it is synchronized. Algrazdax is considered as one singular super unit with delusions that can throw power stuffed into a book that's off the board. It's weird. And Feyfoken is an ad horror-like house that throws fairy dust everywhere, which kinda work as vitality tokens for anyone, but will eat those that are not Feyfoken alive if they have too many of it. It's basically heroin. As for the map, with 4 players on board, we will need a massive 10 by 10 arena, which is what this map is, made by Vaki Ryan, pillars of walls at the 4 corners, and then some elevated terrains in the center with coffins as stairs as one big advantageous spot on the map, plus a couple more sprinkled around with sandpit as adverse terrain and spikes and buggy. Cute. These wooden panels, however, are basically just decorations. Plenty of open space, which is exactly what this match will need with 4 participants in it. Maxwell is here too, by the way. Now, let's talk about their black masses, and as a reminder, this is a free-for-all, so all participating black masses can only have 4 units plus Necromancer. Zytlos has 4 grunts, 1 dead shot, 1 Maleghast, and the Colonel himself. The grunts are just here to shoot, the dead shot is also here to shoot and can ricochet off a skull drone for a better shot, and Maleghast is primarily here to just tank. Even the Colonel is very similar to Operator, down to having physical. The primary difference between Zytlos and Carcass is that Zytlos can actually move, until they decided to dig trenches. Also, check this out. Dices with sound, only in TTS, though it was too loud so we didn't use it in this match, especially when someone is gonna be listening to this post-battle and have to edit the whole 4 hours match into a 20 minutes video. Moving on, Archive has 1 hacker, 1 eliminator, 1 firewall, 1 hive, and the runner herself. Playing as Archive is weird. Unit that gets synchronized gets more powerful, but the enemy might predict your plan as you pass it around, which in this case, is have the eliminator, firewall, and runner to cut up anyone that gets too close, while the hacker just annoys everyone and the hive keeps building as many drones as possible. Eventually, the attrition will be in the black masses flavor, hopefully. Next is the Algrazdax, with the delusional Tower Lord being plagued by despair, 2 obsessions, and lucidity. Where the fuck do I even begin explaining this one? Here's how things work. This is the book. Units are placed from top to bottom, and generally, the enemy can only hit the top 2 units, so the Tower Lord can just go right in enemy formation and wreak havocs, until their delusions start to wear out. In terms of gameplay, the Tower Lord is capable of powerful curse and spell that can even move or change the environment itself, kinda like Gargamix but more insane. Also because of lucidity being a tyrant, and also because of a trait, despair will not be on field until it's gone, so effectively Align will be played with one of her hand tied, and she will still be dangerous as hell. Algrazdax came from Pathways into, a Maleghast homebrew supplement, by the way, link at the description. Lastly, there's the drug dealer, Feyfoken, with 4 sprites, 1 boggart, 1 tro, and the monarch himself. Much like ad horrors, Feyfoken is good at outlasting a constant onslaught due to fairy dust. The enemy could use it too, but too much and they will start melting and get turned into a living sludge that do not give soul, until a Feyfoken eats it, which is another danger the Feyfoken poses by denying soul to people. It's really a faction that's annoying to deal with, and you will see the full picture soon. And yes, we will be having 3 tyrants in this match. Plenty of tyrant actions will be had here. Now that it's done, let's roll for initiative. And Align got it, and we will be following the rule in the book, so the turn order will be clockwise like this, and after the deployment, the Tower Lord uses her obsession for Arcane Eye on one of the grunts, which with Hyperopia upgrade, deals 2 curse damage and is at range 4 to 10. Yes, that is absolutely ridiculous. Thankfully the attack grazed, due to the grunt using Sandghast token to increase its defense for that attack. Also, because of Let Me See Your Warface trait for Necromancer, all adjacent ally to the Colonel get an Accolades token. 2 can be used to add +1 to an attack roll, and I will not be tracking any more of this token for you, because Zytlos gain so many of them so often that it's pointless to point out when they gain it. It's now the Archive's turn, and the runner moves up and uses System Crasher on the Tower Lord, hurting her obsession a bit, then passes Synchronized Token to the firewall. The Colonel then orders the Maleghast to move towards the Feyfoken and just set up shop there, turning it into a giant cover. The sprites of the Feyfoken then just moves through wall, one whisks a grunt towards it, the other nibbles it, giving it 2 fairy dust, not good for the grunt. The Tower Lord moves up, and have another of her obsession use Arcane Eye on the Maleghast, 2 curse piercing through its physical armor. The firewall then moves towards the Zytlos, and shield charges a grunt off the map. Hacker gets the sync token, and Zytlos is now facing a war on 3 fronts. A grunt just climbs up a platform and shoots at the hive, another shoots at the firewall before moving closer to the center. The Tro then gives a generous offer to the Maleghast. It takes the 2 fairy dusts reluctantly, then it moves down a bit. The Tower Lord then uses her lucidity to animate a bunch of nearby walls, which slams into the boggart and stops just an inch away from the monarch. The hacker then uses target analysis on Zytlos grunt, Deadshot, and the Colonel himself, giving all of them 1 vulnerable token. The Colonel himself then just blasts the firewall away right onto the hazard while at 1 health, and moves right afterward. The remaining sprites move down and nibble on the Maleghast, giving it another 2 dusts. The Tower Lord herself finally gets activated, morphs a terrain to hazard just from waking up, and then moves down to attack the Eliminator but only graze instead. The Hive, with Sync token, moves up and manufacture a drone onto the map, passing the token to it. Deadshot just shoots at a sprite with armor, ignoring damage through its super armor. Yes, these things have super armor, it's just dead, and because it doesn't move, the Deadshot just makes a trench beneath it for cover. The Monarch moves left and uses Fairy Care on the Fairy Dusted Grunt, turning 1 Accolades token to more dust. Not good. Because Despair is not in place due to Lucidity's massive size, the next turn moves straight to Archive and the drone just walks in and slaps at her obsession before passing the sync to Eliminator. The last grunt just digs trench and steps into it. The boggart, this shit-ass mushroom guy, everyone hate it and you will know why soon, just moves onto the center platform. The Eliminator moves to the Tower Lord, immediately giving her obsession a vulnerable due to trait, then assassinate it because its health is equal to the vulnerable token it has. The death of a layer, the Tower Lord's unit, is also obliterated on death no matter what, thus not giving her soul, which is one of the weakness of Tower Lord, who can only get soul by things being dead close to her. We modified this to only apply to units killed by the Tower Lord and her layers for the free-for-all. And thus, round 1 ended, and due to taking too much fairy dust, 3 and more, both Maleghast and a grunt takes 2 fairy damage. This turned the grunt into a living sludge, and its soul is still trapped inside. Then round 2 began, and all sides gain more souls, with Archive taking turn last. It's Zytlos' turn, and immediately Zytlos have a truce with Archive to make this match more even, and then have his grunts move up, first to shoot at a sprite but missed, the other dig trenches. The boggart moves down the platform and uses Mischief, and swapped a sprite with the still living sludge, giving the sprite a fairy dust too. The Tower Lord moves around again and has her obsession unleashing Arcane Eye on the Hive and slowing it too. The Eliminator goes for the Tower Lord again, giving another vulnerable token before using Mantis Blades. It only grazes, but that's 2 damage due to vulnerable, then pass the sync to the drone. The Maleghast then uses Skeleton Crew, removing the damn fairy dust and gaining some vitality in the process. The sprites get to go and one whisks a grunt away from its trench, the other tries to whisk the Maleghast but it's immune to forced movement, so it just moves to the living sludge and snack on it, and because of small bites, the living sludge and its soul is still there. The Tower Lord gets her turn and just kicks the Eliminator back so hard, it died on impact, then she moves forward. The drone then moves left and uses transfer power, synchronizes the Hive and gives it strength. Deadshot manufactures a Skull Drone, and because it has this upgrade, the Skull Drone has magic armor. As mentioned before, Skull Drone can redirect attack done by Deadshot to another target in range 4, with vastly higher accuracy, so having it on field makes the Deadshot much more dangerous. The Monarch moves ever closer and uses Wing Beat on himself, which he can just do, giving him fairy dust, and also eats the living sludge completely for more dust, finally freeing the soul within. The Tower Lord then has her lucidity overflow, damaging the drone and wiping out a grunt due to vulnerable, then moves up the stage. The Hive tries to use Unmake on the boggart, but only graze, 1 damage despite strength due to fairy dust acting as vitality, and the little shit just moves around due to its trait. Sync then passes to Hacker. The Colonel then uses Grim Humor to try to keep its unit alive a bit longer, Giving a grunt vitality and remove vulnerable off the dead shot, a sprite moves up and whisks the boggart away to safety. The hacker then uses motor control to get firewall out of the hazard, moving the sprite is just a bonus, and passes the sync to firewall. The tro moves closer to the Maleghast, and uses old magic to just steal vitality away from the Maleghast, spreading it to the boggart and a sprite. The firewall immediately shield charges the monarch for 1 damage, pass the sync to runner, who uses shock knife on the tower lord, destroying her obsession and the damage arc further down. But because of decaying reality, death of obsession also splash 1 fire damage around the tower lord. Boggart is fine because magic armor, grunt has vitality, runner takes 1, and the drone gets destroyed. Then the sync passes back to firewall, and due to repulsor trait, a nearby sprite gets pushed away. Round 2 ended, and round 3 began with all sides gaining a soul. It is Zytlo's turn again, and immediately, the Maleghast goes for skeleton crew to try to stay alive even at 1 health. The sprites then nibble on the firewall, giving it 3 fairy dusts, which is not good. Then just move down. Tower lord then has her lucidity, uses touch of life on last Zytlo's grunt, killing it, thus giving the colonel and tower lord 6 souls, not good for anyone else. It is Archive's turn, and before hacker goes, runner uses hot swap to synchronize it, then the hacker uses reboot on firewall to remove 1 fairy dust and give it 1 strength, and also moves towards the center. The colonel, with the sprite right besides it, blast its face off with shotgun through armor, thanks to accolades from the sniper to get that ping effect, and yes, the colonel can just steal medals from others to use it because he outranks them. The monarch then spends soul to devour the firewall, also getting her strength and fairy dust in the process. The firewall goes to find her wife. Afterward, the monarch gets closer to the runner and wing beat her to give 2 fairy dusts, and then it's the tower lord's turn. This 6 soul ability completely deny anyone from using the center zone again, and also deal 6 damage, but unfortunately, this has to be spread among everyone equally, rounded down, and the Feyfoken has vitality or fairy dust, also ends the tower lord's turn immediately. The runner moves left, and uses shock knife on the drone to arc the damage to multiple enemies because it's easy to hit, misses because rolls a 1 anyway and the drone dies in vain. Sync passes to Hive, Deadshot moves up the platform and loads a shrapnel round into its rifle. Colonel also smokes a cigar for shit and giggles because his soul is maxed out. The Tro then uses Engorge on Maleghast. This causes it to explode for fire damage, which does nothing from all the drugs the Tro is on, and magic armor on Monarch, as well as leaving behind a wreckage. Also Bullfroggy forgot about the ejector seat upgrade, which would have give him a super armored grunt, which would have changed the course of the game. Oops. The Hive just makes another little bot, passing sync to it. Boggart switches places between itself and the Hive. The drone then moves right and transfer power to the Hive, giving it strength and sync. Round 3 ended, and round 4 began with all sides gaining a soul. It's once again Zytlo's turn first, and he has the Deadshot goes first, finally firing an armor ignoring shrapnel at a sprite, which just takes it because vitality, and giving everyone around the sprite vulnerable. Also dig a trench later because it didn't move. The sprites then get activated. One moves back to whisk the Tro forward, the other whisks the Hive into the hazards. The Tower Lord gets to go next, turning one wall in the center into a hazard, then moves next to the Boggart and kicks it. Unfortunately she misses and the Boggart just takes no damage due to fairy dust. The hacker then uses target analysis on the Tro and Monarch, giving them one vulnerable each. The Colonel then uses Goodbye Insect, which is an Archive Necromancer act, to double vulnerable token on the Tro. This is thanks to Spoils of War, which just lets Zytlos to steal act from other Necromancer on field. It's their thing. Then the Colonel just moves away a bit. The Boggart then just switches the Deadshot and Tower Lord around. This would have been a lot worse if Zytlos, Archive, and Algrazdax didn't decide to team up to deal with Feyfoken, but it's still annoying to the Deadshot. Tower Lord then has her Lucidity use Touch of Life on the Tro, finally dealing damage to it. The Hives moves next, try to get out of the hazard but couldn't, so it uses its last function to make another drone and pass sync to one. The Tro then uses Old Magic, this time stealing vulnerable token off the Monarch and pass it onto the runner. The drones get activated, one moves up and just slaps a sprite through armor, the other moves down and transfer power to runner, giving her strength. The Monarch then wing beats himself again for more fairy dust, as well as splashing some onto the Tower Lord, and then he spends 2 souls for Dance of the Butterflies, making 2 soulless sprites, which is kinda dumb for a 2 souls ability. It should be 3 at minimum. Getting fairy dust is no issue, and making 2 sprites after 2 sprites is dead is kinda ridiculous even for an ad horror like House. The runner then steps up a platform and also uses Goodbye Insect on the Tro, giving it 2 more vulnerable thanks to being synchronized, then passes the sync to a drone. The newly created sprites then get activated, one whisks the Colonel to a hazard, the other gives Tower Lord more fairy dust. Round 4 ended, the runner takes 3 damage from too much fairy dust and vulnerable, leaving her on very low health, and round 5 began with all sides gaining more souls. This is a battle of attrition and everyone knows it at this point. This includes me, who is trying to edit this gigantic mess. Something has to be done to bring down the Feifoken. And despite the drug dealer took the last turn, Zeitlos gets to go again. I guess at this point the Alliance just heard that Bullfroggy had a plan, so they just let him do it, and his plan is simple. Devil Core Nuke. I'm honestly not surprised that a homebrew house will have this as a 6 soul ability. Someone has to make the nuke it house. This soul ability deals devil damage, which are unblockable, enough to annihilate 2 of the newly created sprites, launching the other 2 necromancers back, and it still only, merely, take the Tro down to 1 single health, so immediately the Colonel charges towards the Tro and blasts its head off with his shotgun. This, also immediately shows the second drawback of Feifoken, as the Tro is on so much dust that when it died, it becomes a living sludge, meaning it's still alive and its soul is still unreleased. The Necromancer therefore can't use it. The Monarch then moves closer to the Alliance and use Fairy's Care on the Colonel, converting one of his token to dust, then consume part of the Tro for another dice to roll as well as 2 fairy dusts. Also when the Tro gets slain, it also gives fairy dust to everyone around it. This fucking asshole. The Tower Lord then just kicks the Monarch into a wall. It would have done 3 damage if not for stupid fairy dust. The hacker then uses target analysis on the Boggart and Deadshot, giving 1 vulnerable to both, passing sync to drone. Deadshot makes another drone. Spoiler alert, it still can't make use of it. The last sprite whisks the Monarch away from the hazard. The Tower Lord's lucidity then gives the sprite the touch of life. A humble drone then moves down and smacks the Boggart to death. The balance of power has been restored. The other one just transfer power to the runner, giving her strength. The Hive just dies from hazard. And then the runner uses shock knives on the Colonel as the reason for the Alliance has dissolved, but misses because the Colonel smokes a cigar in time to turn that hit into a graze, but then he decided to unsmoke that cigar somehow and just take the full hit, reducing his health to 2. Also the Skull Drone is dead again due to arcing damage. Round 5 ended, the Tower Lord takes massive damage from too much fairy dust. The final round has began, and right now, 3 of the Necromancers are on 2 health, 1 is on 6, the situation could change at any moment. Anyway, it's the Zeitlos' turn again and the Colonel immediately shotguns the drone away to prevent the runner from body blocking, and moves into a trench, staring at the runner on the other side. The Monarch gets to go next and devours the Tower Lord's lucidity, getting all of its fairy dust, and also finally letting despair sets in the Tower Lord. Then the Monarch uses Wing Beat on the despair, which honestly does nothing at this point, and then tries to run away. The Tower Lord takes her turn, morph a wall into more hazard, and kick the Monarch into it, the most powerful magic in the world. The runner then spends soul on hot swap to synchronize the hacker, who then moves adjacent to the runner, thus can body block for her, then uses target analysis on the Colonel to give him 1 vulnerable, and then passes the sync to the runner. The Deadshot then make another drone, which can body block for the Colonel, and now nothing on either sides can make the killing blow. The Tower Lord's despair then ego slaps the Monarch, only for 1 damage again. A drone walks in and tries to slaps the Deadshot, but it misses and Deadshot is just on too much fairy dust. And now, the final turn of the game, the runner cannot get to the Colonel, but with shock knife, she can hit the drone and then arc 2 damage to the Colonel because she's synchronized, but only if she both hit the drone and get that effect roll. But the roll fails and the drone dies again. And thus, the match is over with everyone still alive. How, I'm not sure. Feifoken won on the technicality of having the most health, technically. So that was an insane match that ended in the most unexpected way possible. Zeitlos, Archive, and Feifoken are all pretty cool in their own ways, while Algrazdax is straight up just the most insane homebrew house concept I have ever seen. Feifoken is really tough though, but that's probably more because of it being an ad horror house that nobody in the match pay attentions to until it was too late. This guy literally get a fairy dust every activation. You want to kill it fast. The way Archive works with the synchronized token in motion is pretty exciting too. Sure, your opponent can predict your plan, but it doesn't matter if you can just execute it before they can go, and being able to just spam drone that can slap things into oblivion is hilarious. The Zeitlos meanwhile is probably the most normal houses for people that want to just be better. It's so damn easy to get accolades and sand gas for those clutch moments, or they just want carcass but magic damage, which ironically is bad for this match because a lot of things on field has magic armor. Now, as the last episode, I think I have to give a shout out to the Maleghast community in both PilotNet and the unofficial Maleghast Discord server for the sheer amount of help I got in setting up this entire series, from the map, the art, and even an entire room painstakingly created in Tabletop Simulator. I didn't even use the simulator for a long time already, and this got me back so hard, as well as discovering a couple new things. If not for all the help I get from the community, this series would not even get off the ground, so a big thank you to everyone there, as well as everyone that have participated in the match. I also greatly enjoyed seeing just how much the Maleghast community grew since I started the series. It was lightning fast with how fast the community grew, and this included the homebrew stuff. It's absolutely insane in terms of quality and quantity. Anyway, I think that's all I can talk about this series. Thank you for watching. That's all for now, and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe and click that notification bell button. If you want to see the videos early as well as further support my channel, you can join in my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.